she was being bullied by this Lady Crip, this girl that was from the Lady Crips, and she was gonna light her hair on fire if she saw her again. So that's what really had my mom like riled up. He just like dog walks this girl in front of everybody at the school. So that's Danette. What's good, everybody? This is Everybody Got a Podcast, but Everybody Don't Need a Mic with your host, Vic Jaymes. That is I. Recording this episode on the week of September 18th. And that's a bit of a special day in my family. It's my mom's birthday, Danette Roshawn Turner-McDowell, which is my given last name. And everybody that knows me pretty well knows that my mom passed away 11 years ago, this past July. And it's been something that I've always have continued to process. And lack of a better word, it sucks. It does. When you lose a parent, especially one that you are very close with. My mom was, my best friend. She was my confidant, my biggest supporter, and somebody that, I could just talk to about anything, from a very young age. And she was very candid with me and treated me like an adult, even when I didn't deserve it a lot, and put her through a lot of torment, as a teenager. She was, always right there by my side up until the very end. And I always wish that I could have been that for her in a lot of ways. But, you learn from your mistakes in your life. And it's something that my mom never made me feel a way about. She always supported me in my dreams and what I wanted to do with my life. And I'm doing it now. So, Mom, I love you. Thank you so much. As I get started here, I just wanted to take this time to celebrate my mother. She was such a bright, light in a lot of people's lives, not just my own. The impact she had on me, my family, and a lot of my friends and people that just were in her orbit is something that you can't really measure. It's so weird how certain people just have that, just have that thing. My mom didn't have a lot of money. She wasn't rich by any form or fashion. She wasn't, very influential in the way that something like money and riches will do for somebody. But the amount of people that she touched and still had an impact on and left a footprint with, to me, is just remarkable. Like I sometimes I sit back and I think, and even when me and my friends just have candid conversations about her, that's something that comes up a lot, is just the fact that she just stayed with people even after they, only met her like once or twice. And I think that's something that I've always just tried to live my life by, trying to spread that light, try to live with a lot of love in my heart and give it, to people that deserve it. But, honestly, just, not to quote Biggie, but just continue to spread love and show what type of things can happen when you live in such a way. And that's my mom, and this week I did some things. I typically try to celebrate her around her birthday and on her birthday. So, most years, most milestones, I'll go grab her. She loved roses, so I'll go grab her some roses. She was a big swimmer, in her time, and we'll get more into that in a little bit, but she was a big swimmer. So got in the pool, I worked out, how to swim. She taught me how to swim at a very young age. And, I'm dressed in my weekend, flyest, and I'm going to end up going to see some live music, some jazz or something, because that's something that she was always a big fan of, going out and dancing. If anybody's seen me on a dance floor, chances are, when I was younger, she was with me. as an adult, a lot of the dance moves that I do have come from Danette. So it's a really cool thing to be able to, try to build a platform and to talk about, again, the people that you love. And, unfortunately, I couldn't have my mom here to sit down and interview her, but, the next best thing is to just tell her story and continue to try to do so. So with that being said, more about Dani, as we called her affectionately, more about Dani. She was very much a spark plug, very much a person that didn't take from anybody. Like, she was very much a gangster. As I said, love and light and all that. Like, she was somebody that was very much, she didn't take from people. She was, 5'2" on a good day, and she taught me how to box as a kid. And as a matter of fact, as I say that, she used to tell me this story all the time. It's crazy that I remember this, but when she was in, I think, middle school, she might have been in high school. She might have been at Gardena High, but I think it was middle school. She was being bullied by this Lady Crip, this girl that was from the Lady Crips out in Los Angeles, and she would come home crying. She would come home crying to my papa, Booker Turner, my grandfather, and she was a Big Daddy's girl. So she would come home and she was like crying and telling him, like, oh my God, like, this girl's picking on me, and, what am I going to do? Da, 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 da. And, like most, black and brown parents, I'm sure a lot of us have this same type of story. He told her to go back and like handle her business, or he was going to, handle his business with her and everything. So she, boohoo crying or whatever. But the next day she dresses, she like puts jeans on. I think at this time she was a tomboy as a kid, but I think at this time she was already, dressing with, more dresses and things like that to school. But this day she was like, F all that. She's like, she put on some jeans, and I think she tied her hair in a ponytail. And the girl had told her in so many words that she was gonna like light her. She had, like, my mom had really long, curly, pretty hair, and she was gonna light her hair on fire if she saw her again. So that's what really had my mom like riled up. And she just like dog walks this girl in front of everybody at the school. And from that day on, like, no one rocked with her. Like, no one like tried to pull up on her for any other reason. So like, that's the type of stock that I come from. So yeah, that's crazy that I even remember that, because like she would tell me that story, every now and then. And when I got into my first fight, she told me that story like the night before. And yeah, it's crazy, the things that stay with you. But anyway, so that's Danette in so many ways. A real friend, somebody that put family in front of her own self. I can't tell you how many times where I was good, and I had no idea the things that my mom was going through. When I was in 8th grade, I was getting in a lot of trouble. I was doing a lot of things I wasn't supposed to be doing. And I was at a real crossroads in my life. And I told my mom, I was like, hey, I gotta go to a different high school. I can't go to the same high school that a lot of my friends are going to, or else I'm going to end up getting into a lot of the same things. And she not only supported me for telling her that information, my first semester, because I grew up in Fontana, California, in the Inland Empire. Shout out to the IE again. Fontana is about 45, well, it used to be. I think it's about 45 miles east of Los Angeles. And my uncle lived in Chino Hills, California, which is, about 30 minutes away from Fontana. And my mom would drive me to school every day. Like, we still lived in Fontana for my first semester in high school. So from August to January, February, I think we moved in March, but we would drive every day. She would drive me to school, drive back, because her job was also in Fontana. So she would drive back to Fontana and then drive to go pick me up. And then, so she spent 2 hours roughly a day more with Southern California traffic in the car just to make sure that I had every opportunity, because I was up. But just because that was the case, she wasn't gonna, not listen and receive what I was saying. Like, that's just the type of parent that she was. So we did that for 6 months or so, and then we moved in with my uncle. Like, shout out to Ron Turner. Like, my mom used to call him Naldo, just because his name is short for Ronaldo. And he let us stay with them for, I think, a few months until we found a condo or apartment that we could move into. So that's the type of those are the type of things that exemplified the character of my mom. It also kind of shows you guys what kind of a handful I was at that age, unfortunately. But you live and you learn, hopefully. And her as a youth, growing up in Los Angeles, and like I said, the Athens Park neighborhood of Los Angeles, she was just a tomboy, running around the neighborhood, just trying to play sports with the kids in the neighborhood. And she did everything from what I remember she told me. Basketball, softball, baseball, all those things, as just in the streets and stuff. And then her and my uncle swam competitively at Athens Park Recreations. So they swam. I think she swam up until she got to high school. She would always say the girls were too tall, and it got to a point where she wasn't, it wasn't fun for her, and she wasn't as competitive. So she was just like, I'm out. So she actually didn't, from what I remember, she didn't play any sports in high school, which I always thought was kind of interesting because she was such a tomboy as a kid. But yeah, she was a really great swimmer. She stayed in the water as a kid, and it's interestingly enough, she actually saved my life as a kid. I tell this story all the time because when I was 2 years old, we were at like a Memorial Day, and this is one of those stories where you like don't remember if it's like your memory or if your family tells you the story. But some of my grandparents' family friends used to always have like a big Memorial Day barbecue at their house, and in the backyard at that time, this is the early 90s, so like they didn't have the little gate for kids, and the back door was wide open. And I just remember, like, again, not sure if it's my memory or if people telling me, but like I remember just going through the door and just getting in the water, just jumping in. And I'm just like, I had no idea how to swim, so of course I just go straight to the bottom of the water. And somehow, out of all of these adults and people, my mom was the only person that saw me go in that water. So she dives in and saves my life. And like, I think, right after that, they put me into swimming lessons because it was just evident that I was, gonna be in some water no matter what. So just gotta love Danette, man. So that's her in a nutshell. Again, big sports fan. She was always, watching sports, talking about sports in some capacity. And that was a big part of our relationship as well as a youth. And as I, grew into adulthood, some of my favorite sports memories with my mom, there's a lot, man. It's just probably my favorite was honestly just her being around, again, just her being present, being a team mom for a lot of this picture over here to my left. That's her as my dad too. But that's her she was a team mom. I think that was my last year. She was actually my team mom for one of the teams because she just it's too stressful, and it was, one of those things that just didn't give her any more joy. But she for my first 3 years playing organized sports, like she was my team mom, and so she was always like in the mix of things. And giving that love to everybody and their kids. But even outside of that, like once she stopped doing that, she was always the loudest person, at all of my games. Any of my old teammates from high school, junior high, pee-wee, any sport will tell you that. Like she was always very loud, and not in like an abrasive way. She was always just like cheering, like just always just super loud, just cheering for me, cheering for us. Very supportive, not like some of these other parents that be out here just like causing a ruckus. Like she was always very supportive of everybody on the field, no matter what the situation is, no matter what the score was. So those things were definitely my favorite. Just vibing, watching sports like Monday Night Football. We used to watch Monday Night Football together. That was like required viewing in our household, and we used to get a kick out of the Hank Williams Jr. like, "Are you ready for some football?" Yeah, I guess you could have figured at that time that he was kind of a bigot, but at that time we didn't know, and we was in there vibing, singing along with the song every Monday. Like that was just our vibe. Watching sports movies that for some reason always incorporated or included Denzel Washington. I'm thinking my mom had some other reasons to be watching those movies outside of the fact that she just loves sports movies, but I can't even be mad at her, I guess. That's just funny thinking about those types of things as an adult. We had one day in particular that stands out, as far as like going to sporting events, that I always will remember, and I'll probably tell my kids, if I have kids, or tell anybody that will listen to me about. But my favorite like sporting event that we went to was MJ's last game at Staples Center in 2003. I remember that. Like I remember my mom being like, just surprising me with the tickets, and she paid for them, or got a hold of them herself. And at that time, my grandfather was already working in the NBA, so I was used to going to a lot of like Laker and Clipper games, but that was really special because it wasn't because of him. Like I kind of got used to that. It was like a thing where we didn't go to like a lot of Laker games in general, even though that he worked for the NBA, because he only got a certain amount of tickets. So it was still really special just to go to Staples and be a part of that experience. And obviously Kobe Bryant was, a favorite of mine. So being able to see these two basketball titans go back and forth and be able to experience that with my favorite person was like, it's something I'll never forget. Like it was just a great experience. And you remember those things, kids remember that when you take the time and you are interested in what they're interested in, and you notice it. And that was something that my mom was always really good at. It's kind of funny because as I say that, I royally fumbled the bag that same year, earlier that year I fumbled the bag, because that happened in like October, I think. October or November 2003. And that previous January, I was, excited because my Oakland Raiders were in the Super Bowl for the first time in my lifetime. And I was super excited for the game. And my mom, it's like 8 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever it is. She comes into my room and says, "Hey, do you want to go to the Super Bowl today?" And I'm like, you mean? Like, yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the Super Bowl. I'm not thinking that she means let's just go to San Diego, because the Super Bowl is in San Diego. From Fontana, that's a 2.5 hour drive. Like, it's nothing. But she was like, no. Like, you just want to go to San Diego to like experience it. And I was like, no. Like, why would I want to just go to San Diego and not go to in my head at that time, I didn't understand that the Super Bowl had like a fan experience outside of I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know the Super Bowl was a whole event outside of the actual game. I'm thinking like, oh, we don't go to the game. Like, what's the point of going to San Diego? Like, why even drive? We could just watch the game from here. So that's just how my sports brain worked even at a young age. I'm like, and she didn't explain that part to me until like later in the day, where it was like, it was a moot point of like even going down there. She was like, oh no, I guess I got fan experience. I'm like, oh, well, no, like you said you didn't want to go, remember? I'm like, oh, well, damn. Like, I wish I'd have known, you know? So, royally fumbled that bag. It's one of those things, like I've always thought, like, you know, was it bad that we didn't go? Because we would have gone to the sports bar and watched the game, and I would have been disappointed with the game, but I think I would have been a lot happier if I just went to do this fan experience and then watch the game after, and then they get blown out. I wouldn't have felt as empty as I did just watching it at a watch party at the crib. So, it's, you know, go with the first thought, I guess. You know, when somebody asks you, like, again, like I told you, my mom was like, is you riding? You know, like that's the type of woman, you know, Danette was. So, is you riding? Oh, you not? Okay. She closed the door on you. She put, you know what I mean? That's just what she was. She was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, your first answer was the answer, and she wasn't gonna let you renege on it. So, oh man, that woman, she's awesome. She was awesome. But you know, as I said, it's not a somber or sad episode, but it's definitely one that I am, how do I say this? It's definitely one that I have a lot of, you know, emotions about, you know, pride about, because my mom did die from cancer. It's something that has stuck with me, because I never thought my mom would ever get cancer. Not her, not Dani T. It just wasn't something that I thought that her life was going to look like, you know, our lives, but especially her life was going to look like. She just had such a vibrant soul and energy that I never thought that something would take her away earlier than I thought that she was supposed to. But that's the facts of the matter. And unfortunately, like so many things, you know, globally, locally, however you want to look at it, Black women are at the bottom of the totem pole in a lot of ways as far as how we treat them. And the medical field, unfortunately, is no different. And cancer, especially, is no different. Mom was diagnosed with stomach cancer when I was 15 years old, when I was a sophomore in high school. And she, you know, Black women with stomach cancer are even more than I think it's 2.3 times more likely to die from stomach cancer, develop it, diagnosed, or die from stomach cancer. So that's a problem. And I you know, the American Cancer Society, thankfully, has woken up to that fact. They have, you know, started the Voices for Black Women to increase research for Black women with cancer, because, you know, like most other things, like the studies before were white male centered. So now they're trying to get participants in that study. And I'm going to put that information on the screen about, you know, just getting involved. And hopefully if you have, you know, women in your life, you know, Black women in your life, to ask them to participate in this study. I believe they're looking for women from the ages of 22 to 55. So if you know anybody, and if you're willing and have time to donate your time to the study, please do. If not, please donate to the American Cancer Society. I'm a big supporter of Relay for Life. I've raised money for them in the past. I've walked in Relay for Lives with my mom, and since she has passed. So it's a good organization to at least be a part of, to raise funding for cancer research. Some organizations that are doing the work for Black women as far as with cancer. The African American Breast Cancer Alliance, they're creating a network for Black women, men, families, and communities affected by breast cancer. Black Women's Health Imperative, a nonprofit created to help protect and advance the health of Black women and girls. The Endometrial Cancer Action Network for African Americans, whose mission is to improve the lives of women with endometrial cancer. So please please donate to those organizations if you can. I will make sure to put those links on the screen as well. You know, as a young man, you know, learning that your mom has cancer, it's tough. But I couldn't imagine, like, my mom didn't allow me to see how tough it was for her. I was very fragile as a young man. Most of my friends will tell you that. My family will tell you that. I dealt with a lot of things mentally, and unfortunately that made it hard to tell me certain things. And, you know, that was definitely one of them. I had a big cry about it, and, you know, my mom let me know everything was going to be okay, because that's just kind of how she was. She was just very warm. She just let me know things were going to be fine, and I didn't need to worry about her. But that just wasn't going to happen, because that's my mom, you know. So she fought. You know, she just began doing treatment right away. You know, I went to chemo with her, you know, a few times early, which wasn't bad. Like, it wasn't, I couldn't handle it, thankfully, at that time. But it was one of those things that, again, she never let me understand or see how much of a struggle it was for her, how tired she was, the amount of energy it took for her just to get out of bed and do simple things. Because even during this time she's going through chemo, she kind of presented it normally. She didn't really look sick, you know, and, you know, we didn't have a bunch of people like caring for her in the house. It was still just me and her a large portion of the time, unless she had to go to like because at that time I didn't have a license or a car. So unless she had to go to like a appointment or the chemo, like, there wasn't really anybody around. My grandparents and my uncle, shout out to the community in Chino Hills, our friends and family there that were really, you know, pivotal in making sure that she got to her appointments and everything. But yeah, she just really like thugged it out. You know, I hate to say it any other way, but she really didn't let me see anything that would lead me to believe that she was gonna be gone in a few years, which, you know, gave me a level of comfort to a certain extent. But how I knew things were severe, or the severity of the situation, was my senior year in high school, because we were having a good year. It was like middle of the way through the season, and my mom had a seizure like the night before a game. It was like a Thursday night, and I remember my grandparents were there. I think she had an appointment the next day, and that's why they were there at the house. And she had a seizure, and, you know, I kept my cool. Like, I called the ambulance because my grandparents couldn't do it, and I called the ambulance, and we actually thought that she passed, because it was just such a severe seizure, and none of us had any experience with epilepsy before, or anything, like, you know, anybody. We didn't know anybody with epilepsy, so we just didn't know how this worked really. And so when she was kind of just still, we were just like, okay, well, it went bad, you know. So they came, and she was responsive. They took her to the hospital. I ended up staying with close family friends. Shout out to Arthur Forrest and his family. I stayed with him that night. They lived up the street, and that's something I don't think a lot of people knew that. I don't think I told a lot of people that, except for my very close friends. So I played a whole game when my mom was in the hospital, and I didn't tell anybody. It was one of my best games I had that year, actually. I don't know how. I think I just blocked everything out. I really didn't know what to do. I was kind of numb, and it was just one of those things, like, not to make it about me, but it was just one of those things that it was interesting. It really was. I don't really know. It was like an out-of-body experience. I don't even remember playing that game, to be honest with you. I just remember that night, and then, you know, going home and making sure she was okay, going to the hospital and making sure she was fine. So she ended up getting released that weekend. So, you know, it was kind of much ado about nothing, but that was something that definitely stayed with me for years to come. Even as an adult, I've always kind of thought that, you know, I didn't do enough for her in that respect. So I still, go to therapy about it and still have to work through that, especially after she's passed away. But, I bounced around through JUCO. She was going to chemo still during that time. Ended up getting my scholarship, and one of my first call that I made was to Danette, and she was, we both cried. She cried, and we both cried, and it was just one of those moments that, again, I'll never forget, because she was, there through it all. For 17 years of my life, like, my mom was a constant in that, and my one of my biggest one of my saddest moments of my life, was the fact that she never got a chance to see that through. Like, got my scholarship, went through my first semester, and she passed away. She passed away that summer. After I got back from my first semester. I don't think God makes mistakes, and I got a chance to see her, one last time. I got home in May of 2013. She passed away July. So it's one of those things that you pray on, and you try to find understanding in it. It's something, like I said, therapy, meditation, prayer, like, I've done it all. Like, it's something that I've just grown with. It just didn't seem fair. She lived that long, and I thought that, she had been in remission a bunch of times, but then they came back, and I was just like, and I think she was just done. I think she never told me, and that she felt that way, but I could, I think she felt that, like, I was good. I was off at school. I was getting ready to start my first season of college football at a 4-year school. I think she was just like, he's good. I think I'm done. Like, she was just it was just tiring. Like, I think a lot of people don't understand. The diagnosis is one thing, but the things that our loved ones go through that have cancer, that fight is real. It's a fight. Like, it's really a fucking bare knuckle brawl, and it's tiring. It's exhausting. Again, this is just coming from, like, just watching her. Like, it's something that I wouldn't wish on anybody. Not my worst enemy. I don't really have any enemies, but, like, I wouldn't wish that on really anybody. Like, the battle of cancer. But there are people out here, fighting right now. They're fighting as I'm recording this. They'll be fighting as this comes out, in early October. And I think the best thing that we can do is to organize where we can. If you find it in your heart, if you know people, don't know people, but just know what cancer does to people we love, just please, donate where you can. Again, I'm going to put the links up, support people in their fight that the best ways you can, the capacities you can. Big shout out to my homegirl, Jerica Jenkins. She's one of the assistant basketball coaches over at Texas State. I covered her for a story when I was at Spectrum a few years back. Such a beautiful soul, such a warm-hearted person. She got diagnosed with cancer when she was in high school. So when I was learning about my mother's diagnosis, she was being diagnosed, because we're the same age. So she was being diagnosed as I was learning about my mom's diagnosis. And I couldn't imagine going through cancer in high school. But she did. She went through cancer in high school and still played basketball. As she was going through chemo and all of the arduous processes that go with having cancer. And then earned a scholarship to Hampton University. Like, what? Big ups to her. Please follow her journey. She's coaching, like I said, she's coaching basketball right now at Texas State University. And she's, a fitness influencer. she's somebody definitely to follow on her journey as she continues to spread, her message and her light to the masses. I really just want to give resources to people who have loved ones who have cancer, who have died from cancer. Cancer Care has resources for you, social workers that you can contact. I'll put that number here on the screen. Please contact them if you're struggling, if you're going through things. Please seek help if you're dealing with anything as a result of, your family members dealing with cancer. It sucks. I don't sugarcoat that at all. So I don't want anybody to be going through pain that doesn't have outlets. I have a very strong, solid community around me, friends, family. It's made this a lot easier. And again, I don't like saying easier, but it's just made it to where I don't live with constant pain all the time. And I just want that for everybody that's, gone through this, going through this, or will go through this. So please seek help if you need it. Legacy is a funny thing because, you typically tie that to, passing down money or, land or things like that sometimes, or the impact you have on the world. And I think the one thing I take from my mom's is impact is, impact is just how you treat people, how you interact with people. Not taking from people, but also leading with love. And I try to do that. I work to do that every day. As I wake up, I try to, bring some more love and light into the world. And that's my mom's legacy. That's Danette Roshawn Turner's legacy, is somebody who didn't take it for granted. She didn't take days for granted. She had a smile on her face, even through chemo, which to this day stays with me. One of our last conversations, she told me I was going to be okay. And I am. And I think that's something that, people like that, they leave a mark on you. And my job as her son, as her living legacy, is to continue to bring that to the world. So I really appreciate y'all for indulging me this episode. I just wanted to make sure that, I talked about my mom. I don't do that enough, I feel like. And for somebody that have some sort of platform over the last few years, I wanted to make sure that I do that more often and, find out the stories that, I don't know about her and tell the stories that I do know. And it's an honor to be, her son, and, I miss her, but we push forward. It's something that my mom would definitely want me to do. So that's what I'm doing. But again, I appreciate y'all for tuning in to Everybody Got a Podcast. Again, the music that you'll hear is from my guy, Corbin Butler. He's got some new music out. So please tune in, and thank you guys for liking and subscribing the content. Please, tell your friends, tell your family to tune in. I know like everybody got a lot of podcasts to listen to, but just add one more on the docket. It don't hurt nobody. You can come listen to it at your leisure, But yeah, I appreciate you guys so much. And one thing I'll just leave y'all with is be kind to each other. Tell people you love them if you don't do that enough. And be present. Be present in the moment. and, good things will come.